me, I would have shot.
The crime. That's called accomplice liability.
This is Project Achilles. Today we are with Matthew Fakhoury, who is a criminal attorney, a former prosecutor, and with Adriano, concealed carry instructor, and me, Armand Carbonnel. I'm a former Red Beret in the French Army, trained in command and techniques, and we are about to break down a case which happened in real life, and we're going to break it down to get some instruction, learning for real life self-defense. As you can see, there is a security officer who is stepping in during a robbery, an armed robbery, and we're gonna see that right now. He's pointing his gun at a young guy who is robbing the cashier right now. In the first place, he's holding his fire, and then he's going to get attracted by this guy, and all of a sudden the second accomplice is coming behind him, shooting at him. The security officer gets shot and shoots at his attacker. So it would be interesting to see the different perspective of us based off our background. So maybe we can start with you, Adriano. As the concealed carry officer and the civilian, what do you see?
So what catches my attention the most actually is right when this gentleman jumps over the counter and you can see a security officer points. I would have shot.
You would have shot.
Like, and that's what this is good that we're doing this, because right there, I think my instinct wouldn't have been to point at somebody that's already robbing me. I would have shot.
So why do you think he's holding his fire then? You know, like what's the reason you would have done that?
I think he's giving him a chance, but it's interesting to me. It's right here, right? Look, he looks behind to see where's the other guy, and then he pulls his gun out, is walking behind him and not shooting until he gets shot at.
Yeah.
So, Matt, I don't know if it was me, I think I would have pulled the trigger.
Maybe just before you step in with the legal aspect of it, just from a tactical perspective, I think the guy did great, honestly.
Yeah.
Because before he draws, I feel he's watching it on his side because he saw that there are two guys, right? And he's kind of covering himself before he draw because he knows that he's going to look at the guy who has the weapon, which is the main threat. And then I feel that he's holding his fire because, you know, he's not sure, like, of his objective, because you have the cashier and then you have another guy who is behind, so it doesn't want to shoot at anyone, right? So you have the robber, you have two civilian people, and maybe he's holding his fire to not shoot any innocent guy, right? So I would say that was a smart move, but then he's kind of like fixated by the contact then, and he's forgetting to watching his six, right? And then the second guy come and shoot at him.
Starts shooting, right?
You know? So I mean, this is how I see that. Maybe there is legal implication on it.
So what I see a few things that jump out at me. So first of all, self-defense is not only the defense of yourself, it's also the defense of others. So what Adriano was alluding to is that, you know, I would have shot him because it was a robbery. It's not only a robbery here. When he puts that gun to the face or the head of the cashier, that's at the very least an aggravated assault. You got to remember, when you are thinking about self-defense, there's two things you have to think about. The first is an imminent threat. So was that, whether yourself or the other person, were they facing an imminent threat? And that cashier was facing an imminent threat. There was a guy pointing a gun just a few inches away from his head, which means that this trained security officer, who we think is a trained security officer, had every right at that point to not only defend himself, but to defend others, to defend this other individual. And he would have been justified because he would have equaled the force, a proportionate force, a gun on a gun. Right? So he didn't shoot. Adriano's right. He probably was being reasonable, trying to assess the situation properly and de-escalate, which is what you should do. But if he would have shot at that point, I think right when he had the gun at the cashier's head, I think it would have been a justifiable homicide. At that point, he did get a little focused on the guy that was retreating. The other guy shot at him, right? So at that point, what can he do? Again, it's the same analysis. Is there an imminent threat? And is his conduct reasonable? Is it proportionate to the threat that he's facing? Clearly, when somebody is shooting at you, there's an imminent threat of death or great bodily harm. You have every right to meet that threat with the same threat, which is death or great bodily harm through the same weapon like a gun. So I think his conduct here, I'm very impressed by him. I mean, I know he kind of got out of the way and he was focusing for a little bit, But I don't think he overreacted. I think that the threat was there and his actions were definitely reasonable and justifiable in this situation.
So like to Adriano's point, if you start shooting even though he's not shooting first, right? Are you in the right or are you in the wrong?
That's a great question. You don't have to wait for somebody to shoot you for you to shoot back. If the threat is there and it's imminent, you can fire. You could fire first. If somebody has a gun pointing at me into my head and they're approaching and I'm just quicker on the draw, that's a justifiable homicide. The threat is imminent. There's somebody approaching me with a gun drawn pointed at my head, and my response is reasonable that I'm meeting it with the same force. I just got to him first. So even though I fired first, it doesn't mean that I'm necessarily going to be charged. It's like, think about it when you're a kid and your dad said, if somebody's about to punch you, you punch them first. That's still self-defense. I'm feeling threatened, somebody's taking a swing, I land first, self-defense. Now, obviously, this is escalated with weapons and firearms, but it's the same general theory.
It's the same.
So it's very interesting how he draws, right? Immediately he's drawing, he's very composed. It's surprising. You can tell he's trained the way he walks, the way he moves. But you're right, he got a little distracted or fixated on the one person and completely lost his back. And one of the most interesting parts for me is how he actually, you see the person in the blue is unfazed with what's happening. And then he uses her as a shield. I mean,
He almost uses her, yeah, it looks like it for a second. I think she was surprised and taken aback by the situation as well.
People react differently,
how
right?
How would you react if you were this person, like with the yellow card? You know, like, can you put yourself in that perspective right now? Like, what's happening, what's going on, right?
If I wasn't carrying conceal and I don't have anything on me, my instinct is preservation, right? Push that cart, either drop or run.
Yeah,
like,
run away.
I would do like I was doing in the army, man. Somebody is shooting at me and I don't have anything, or I'm surprised or whatever. I just take cover behind.
Yeah, tuck and make a ball, right?
But you know, as far as these two offenders, right? They're facing multiple charges, or a reckless discharge of a firearm. They're facing obviously armed robbery, aggravated assault. I mean, there's so many things here that they did wrong.
And so, Matt, that's, you know, like, I'm French originally, right? Everybody knows that. Everybody can hear my accent. I'm not going to hide it, right? But anyway, so I studied law before I joined the army. So I know a little bit about it, right? Because I studied 6 years. So I can relate to what you say. But the funny difference between our systems is that here, a count, if you're convicted, it's that many years. And then you have another count, it's another many years that you get, right? In France, we're going to get like the worst of them, and it's going to be your total amount. Means like you shoot at someone and it's 20 years, okay, you're just going to go 20 years in jail, right? Mm-hmm. Here, you're going to add up. So how many years you face?
Oh, there's several counts here. I mean, every time, so first of all, the robbery is a Class X felony with a firearm. There was a discharge of a firearm, which is an extendable Class X felony. These are non-probationable offenses. Every time he pulls the trigger and a fire shot that second guy is going to face additional charges. Plus, what you got to remember is that the liability or the conduct of one guy is also attributed to the other. They're conspiring. So even if the other guy, that first guy, actually never shot anybody, right? He threatened to shoot somebody, but he never fired a gun. It does not matter. Whatever he does is going to be contributed to the other guy, and the other guy is going to be contributed to him. They came together, they conspired. Whatever his conduct is equalized to his conduct, and they're both going to suffer the equal consequences.
So basically, even though one didn't fire anything, he's going to face the exact same charges and the same consequences.
Because they're together.
Because they're a team.
Yeah, they're a team.
They're a team.
It's okay. Yeah.
Each guy tried to further the crime. Each guy was taking steps to further the crime. That's called accomplice liability, right? So if he's the getaway driver and I'm the one with the gun and I'm the one doing the shooting and he stays in the car the entire time, you're still equally as liable as I am, criminally liable as I am, for everything I do in the store, even though he never stepped foot into the store. Yeah. That's what accomplice liability is all about.
Okay, now that's making sense. I mean, I feel it's good, because it should be like, you know, like people should think twice before to rob other people.
It's the intention for me, right? You're part of the group that's.
Yeah.
This is organized crime, basically.
It really is, right? It really is.
Now, the other thing that catches my attention is, look at his draw. Very, very calm, very posed. And then look at the bottom. That You can tell either he's never shot a gun or the way he's holding it, the kickback,
The recall on it.
Right? It's more like just shooting rather than this trained movement that we always discuss, right? How you have to train with your firearm. And I think it's interesting. You can see how they walk and operate and even carry the weapon. That also caught my attention.
Yeah, and as you're speaking about that, you have really two different styles. You have the trained guy who's like very calm, very composed. He has a very good draw. And then you have the two robbers who like shooting like, you know, like in the movies, like it's completely like two different worlds. I mean, to me, the security officer really, I mean, he deserves an award. I mean, this guy is really.
He deserves a medal, absolutely. And notice he never shot until the other guy shot at him first. The second offender, we'll call him, shot first when he kind of lost track of him and he realized he was getting shot at. Then he fired back.
Yeah, and he fired back once he had a bullet in the shoulder.
He got shot, right. He could have shot first and it would have been fine. And by the way, even if he killed him, okay, it's still considered a murder. It's an intentional homicide, right? It's a murder. However, it's a justifiable homicide.
Okay.
So remember, we want people to defend themselves.
Yeah.
It's not an excuse, it's a justification. That's why they call it justifiable homicide.
It means that you still have to be responsible for your actions, right?
Well, and not only that you're responsible, we encourage people, right? That's what a justification is, right? You're justified in doing this. You were in the right? You didn't start the aggression, but you ended the aggression.
Okay, that's making sense. Yeah. I mean,
So I actually have a question completely unrelated. What happened if the security guard is hiding behind the woman in the blue and he shoots her?
And the security guard shoots her?
Yeah, as they're exchanging fire, and
like
he
a
shoots her.
collateral victim, right?
Well, let's say he actually kills her. Now, the family of this person sees the video and is like, you know what? I'm going to sue the security guard. He shot my relative. Yeah. Is that?
So, believe it or not, there was a rule called the felony murder rule, which means any murder that's committed in the course of a felony, which is this robbery, is going to be attributed to the people who are committing the felony.
Interesting. Look at that.
So even that rule has changed, specifically in Illinois, it's changed recently, right? But to get down to the nitty-gritty of it, or simplify this for this video, it wasn't intentionally shooting her. He was attempting to shoot another individual, which he was justified in shooting. Okay? So there would be a self-defense claim, even though he wasn't attempting to shoot the young woman in the blue. So it's a little bit more complicated because you still have somebody who died. It was an intentional killing, but it wasn't meant for that individual. It's called the transferred intent rule, is the way in law school we taught it. But the intent is, again, justified because of the self-defense aspect of it.
And so much, you said something very interesting. You say in Illinois, it's changing because you have 50 states, you have federal states, each state have a state of the law, right? So it means that what's true in Illinois is wrong in Georgia, right?
It could be, absolutely. Self-defense in general is the same, but specifically state laws are a lot different. Some state laws are a little bit more conservative, other state laws are a little bit more liberal. There's state laws that require you to retreat, other state laws allow you to stand your ground. So there's different aspects of it. In general, we all kind of know what self-defense is. You stand your ground and you fight back. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I mean, it's good because then we have two very interesting points right there. Like, if I'm a citizen of the United States, I should be aware of the law, the state of the law in my states of residence, right?
Of course.
And then what is the stand your ground, you know? Because everybody say, oh, you have the stand your ground, but like, I guess it's changing from a state to another, or, and what does it mean? Because some people, they're going to say, oh, it's stand your ground. Yes. Well, and what does it mean, right?
Can I add to that? Because this is now getting very interesting. You're French, you said it, right? Imagine you're in that situation. Imagine you're in that situation. The gun is on the floor. You grab it. You don't have a FOID. You live in Illinois. Yeah. Your status could be X, but now you're the person that's shooting and kill somebody. Is there a differentiation in that
that's so if you cannot possess a gun or use a gun technically in a situation like this.
So he couldn't even grab it from the floor?
Technically, he shouldn't. Wow. However, I really don't think, practically speaking, that will be enforced against him. I think if he is grabbing the gun, again, self-defense is a justification. We want people to defend themselves and other people. I think if he really grabbed the gun and defended these other people in the store, I don't think there would be any criminal liability. I'd like to see a prosecutor try to charge him and the ramifications and the pushback on a case like this, if he were to save the day, especially with him and his training.
Yeah. And
So-
how about his status? He's not a U.S. citizen, and now we have somebody, a foreign person, killing basically.
But he's
US
here
citizen.
legally.
Yeah.
Correct.
Right.
Legally,
So
but-
his status, well, he's not. I mean, he's here legally. So it's a different. I think you're implying something a little different. As long as he's following the law and being reasonable. Like you asked me about state laws.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
Every
And
state's
understand your ground as well.
right. Every state's a little different, right?
Yeah.
But here's the one law that's universal wherever you go in the United States and all over the world: be reasonable.
That is true.
that-
Right?
So if you're being reasonable,
Yeah.
the law is meant to
Protect.
reward and protect people who are being reasonable.
Yeah.
Right. So if I take a trip to California for the weekend, I hope I never get into any trouble there. But if I do, my standard in my head is to be reasonable.
Let's make it.
Not to be over aggressive, not to be overly offensive in any way, shape, or form, right? And God forbid you get in a situation like this, you just want to be reasonable. Defend myself, defend others, retreat, de-escalate, get yourself out of the situation if possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Right?
We're talking about state laws. Like I said before, I'm carrying conceal, I've renewed a couple times. So I've gone through the training 1, 2, 3 times. And every single time we go, or every time we give the class, you have a pamphlet with some basic scenarios or laws. But every time I get asked, where can I find more information? Right? I could be carrying conceal, I could be FOID, I could be none of them. I just want to understand. And even myself, I find it impossible to navigate, like to look for that summary or that guide. Any advice on
Sure,
where to
yeah, a
look for
couple
something?
things. So first of all, in Illinois, our laws are called the Illinois Compiled Statutes. It's abbreviated ILCS. If you Google that, if you put ILCS like gun laws or FOID or concealed carry, several pieces of literature will come up that you could read. That's the actual law, which is very dense. It's hard to read some of that law. I'm sure there are other websites like the Illinois State Police, or maybe even federal websites that could tell you a little bit about this, but obviously you want the state.
Illinois specific.
Yeah, Illinois specific. So I would start there. First of all, you really want to do read the law. As boring as it is, as dense as it is, as complicated as it is, you want to read the law. If you want a breakdown of the law, then you go to a secondary resource. Maybe contact an attorney, right? Maybe again, go to the Illinois State Police. I know they have references on their website and material on their website regarding concealed carry and FOID applications, procedures, where you could go, where you can't go, so on and so forth. And then there's like your local gun shops, right? A lot of the local gun shops teach how to do this. They have the training that you've done, and they have material there that you could just go pick up at your local gun shop.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, actually, yeah. I mean,
it's just- I
sometimes
find
the
it-
obvious is the best answer, right?
Yeah, no, I like what you're saying. Go to your gun
Yeah.
shop, right? Like we go to the range a lot.
Yeah.
Maybe just ask there.
They
but it's-
definitely should have material
yeah.
there.
I just feel it's impossible to navigate, right? There's no easy button when it comes to these are your laws.
But
per
I
state.
think like what Adriano was thinking about is more like, an easy guide to
Yeah, like
navigate, because some people are going to ask some questions about like some specifics, some details, and it's very hard to have an answer, which is because, I mean, he's not a lawyer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's even when you're a lawyer, the answer is not always like that easy.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you answer, right? So maybe like by adding a little bit of what you can get in the gun shop, what you can get from the CCL, what you can get from Google, you can have an idea. The best would be like maybe to go to.
Yeah, it might be a good idea
you.
to, some lawyers offer free consultations, or sometimes it's an investment in your life. Spend the $200 or $300, meet with a lawyer for a couple hours, bring your questions, ask for material. A good lawyer should be able to provide you with that, especially one who specifically focuses on FOIDs and concealed carries and laws around it. So it's an investment into you, your life, your license, your future, your family, if you're protecting them, to do the right thing and know exactly what's going on.
That's also interesting, right? Because it's not just owning the gun; it's taking the time to go practice, to know the laws.
So I would say that in the order, if you own a gun, you have to be responsible and reasonable, right? The rule of reasonable are going to apply again.
Yeah.
You have to train, you have to practice. Or, I mean, people owning guns who are not practicing, I think it's stupid, honestly, because then what are you going to do?
I keep a journal. That's one of the first things they taught us is when you go shooting, just document it.
Yeah.
Because the case was presented. If something ever happens, it just shows not only that you own a gun, that you're responsible, that you train, that you invest in learning and practicing, right? It's not just an emotional response, if you will. And that's what caught my attention from the security guard. You can see he's not emotional. I said I probably would have fired.
I mean,
right?
I'm sure that if there is an earthquake, he's going to be like the most like calm person in the United States. You know, he got shot. He's just reacting. So actually, he's you know like he's doing a 180, right?
Yeah, it's very impressive.
He's keeping his line. I mean, he's not endangering anyone. This guy is highly trained. I don't know his background or whatever, or what he's doing his weekend, but he's really, really good.
See, he looks at his six, the way he walks with the gun.
Yeah.
It's almost...
And you see, like, he's choosing the right angle. He's not going toward the lady, right, who is with the yellow card. He's getting out. You know, he could have chosen to go the other way around, but no. He's still, like, keeping his line of fire, I mean, the most safe as he could, right?
And one thing I didn't mention is that this is also an attempt murder. Okay, when you're firing your gun to kill somebody. In this type of setting, we're not talking about obviously at the range or hunting or anything like that, right?
Yeah.
If you're firing your weapon at somebody out in public in the real world, you're trying to kill them. And just know that if they have a gun too, they're going to try to kill you back, right? So when he is there and he draws his weapon, if you notice I think it's his left shoulder gets shot. That individual who's shooting him, luckily, clearly didn't kill him, but he's going to be charged with an attempt murder. Okay, and attempt murder is, again, a Class X felony. It's non-probationable. He could go to prison for many, many years, which he probably will and should in a situation like this. But when he fires, he should expect to be fired upon.
Yeah, and I'm noticing something which is interesting. The second guy, right, when he's coming back, he has to rack his gun. If you pay attention, he has his gun in a little bag that he's carrying on his chest, and he's racking his gun actually before he shoots. So
yeah, look at that.
You see that?
Yeah.
So he really has the intention to kill, right? To shoot at the guy to hurt him because he's intentionally racking to fire. I mean, and so this is relating to another thing. If you're carrying for defending yourself, you should be in condition too. Your gun should be in battery, ready to shoot to it, because otherwise you're losing like
precious seconds.
Two seconds, right? You can get killed. Imagine that the security officer doesn't have his gun ready to shoot. He could have get killed because he's shooting back right away.
Right, or he wasn't trained in any way, shape, or form. Right.
Exactly.
When you have two untrained people shooting at each other in a store with civilians around, this could have gone a lot worse.
Or it could have, it could be a tragedy when you have like people like, you know, shooting
everywhere
like this, you know, in like
no, it's very clear that the lack of training, if you will, and control, right?
If you look at how many rounds he's shooting, you can see like the shells going out. I think it's like maybe 2 or 3. I see 2 right now. You know, you can see one is like going over the register, but it's like it's very clean shot and stuff. So the thing is that I don't have the outcome of the story. I don't know like if they got arrested, if the other.
Where'd you get the video from? I'm sure you could track it down.
It's a video from the police. You know, like they read the
police channel.
Yeah, the police channel. They're releasing some videos, right? And I got it from there, but I looked online to see like if they had arrested anyone, and I can't find it.
And you know, it's interesting because this looks familiar, right? I mean, it
looks like a Walgreens
it looks like any convenience store that any of us could be at.
Yeah.
That's why I like looking at this type of video. This is real life. It's not practice. This is as raw as it gets, right?
We can create a scenario here. It's gonna be easy, you know. I'm gonna be the good guy, you're gonna be the bad guy. And we're gonna make like a scene, right? It's gonna be super easy, but in the real life, it's real different.
And that's what you get at Project Achilles. You get real life. That's what you get at Project Achilles. You get real life situations and scenarios and how to respond to it, both tactically, from a firearm perspective, from a martial arts and self-defense perspective, and then from a legal perspective as well.
That's true, because we're training BJJ. We're training mixed martial arts. We're training Muay Thai. There were like a class actually on Muay Thai like 5 minutes ago before we started this podcast, and we have people like specialized in medicine, instructors in concealed carry. We have like lawyers, we even have doctors if people are injured, you know.
No, but that's also interesting, right? Because it's a lifestyle. It's
Yeah.
It's the martial arts. It's the legal aspect of owning or attacking or defending yourself.
Yeah.
It's that weapon training.
Exactly. You know, this is the discipline.
Yeah.
I would say it's discipline, like we have in the army.
This is life.
Discipline.
Yeah, this is life. These are all things you encounter in life.
Exactly.
Oh.
Well,
thank you for having us. Man.
Thank you very much.
I mean, thank you very much for coming, guys, because it's
Our
late
pleasure.
night. You know, it's 8:30 almost p.m. You know, everybody had a long day, and they come to discuss with us that case. Thank you very much, guys, for coming.
My pleasure. Thanks for having us.
Stay tuned for the next episode because we have a lot of cases to discuss. Thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
watching us, guys. Bye.
Bye.